Nos acompaña Fernando Ferreira, Chief Strategist en XP. Bienvenido, Fernando. Welcome. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to talk to all of you.
How did Trump's trade war with China affect Latin American exports and economic stability?
Okay, so Latin America, I think, is a bit more insulated from this whole trade war between the US and China. And when you look at the tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs that Trump's government imposed, right, into many countries, most Latin American countries got the minimum 10% tariff. Also, Mexico didn't get the reciprocal tariffs because they already had separate tariffs. And I think there are two reasons behind the fact that Latin America got away, right, with lower tariffs than the rest of the countries globally. I think, first of all, several countries in Latin America, they already had a trade deficit with the US, which is the case of Brazil, it is the case of Colombia and several other countries. And in a sense, the Trump's government is trying to reduce its trade deficit with other countries. So the countries that the US had a trade surplus, as it is the case with several Latin American countries, they got the minimum 10% tariff. So that's one of the reasons why Latin America is not in the middle of this whole debate on tariffs. The second reason, I think, has to do with the fact of geopolitical influence. When we saw what the Trade Secretary Scott Bessent said recently in his trip to Argentina, he basically said that the US didn't want to have China growing its influence in a very important region for the US, which is the Americas region, and in particular Latin America. So I think those two reasons made Latin America a relative winner, or let's put it this way, less of a loser in this whole debate of trade war.
And a very short question, in what ways did fears of a US recession during Trump's presidency influence foreign investment in Latin American countries?
Yeah, definitely. We think Latin America can receive more investments, both short-term and long-term. What do I mean by that? I think short-term investors are definitely reshuffling their portfolios globally. As you were just mentioning recently in the program, we are seeing the stock market in the US suffering year to date, and new investors are rotating into other regions, and definitely emerging markets is benefiting as a result, and Latin America as well. In the long-term investments in terms of FDI and foreign investments can also increase, in our view, in most Latin American countries, as several multinationals will look to expand their production bases to outside China, and definitely Latin America has a strong domestic consumer environment, and as well it is closer to the US, so definitely they could benefit as well from higher investments from multinationals. Having said that, as you mentioned, the risk of recession in the US and a stronger economic deceleration, I think it is a risk for the region, not only for the region, but also obviously the whole world. But definitely it is one of the risks that we are seeing for 2025 if this whole trade war debate leads into a stronger economic deceleration than expected.
Pues Fernando Ferreira, Chief Strategist at XP, thank you for joining us.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Gracias.